Real Madrid won, Girona won, and that scoreline is going to haunt us all week. Valverde put Madrid ahead in the 51st minute. Thomas Lemar, of all people, equalized in the 62nd, and then, in the dying moments, Mbappé went down in the box with what looked like an injury, and the referee waved it all away. Fran Garcia had already been stretchered off in the 38th, Abel Ruiz forced off for Girona in the 85th, and Mbappé himself limping in the 89th, a night of chaos, controversy, and 1 point that feels like a defeat.
If you were watching last night and you're still processing it, good. You should be. Because by the time we're done today, you'll understand exactly why this draw is even more painful than it first appeared. Let's get into it.
Madre mia, tío! The fanbase woke up this morning absolutely seething, and I mean seething. It's not just frustration, it's a kind of cold, bone-deep fury that only comes when you feel like you've been robbed in broad daylight.
And the thing is, this isn't the usual post-match grumbling. The volume on this one is different. One fan said it perfectly: no penalty, no party. And that single phrase is basically the entire emotional summary of what happened last night against Girona.
For context, Madrid drew 1-1, Valverde scored, Lemar equalized, and then in the final moments there was an incident involving Mbappé in the box that the referee waved away. And the fans have completely lost their minds about it.
The fan comments are volcanic. One person wrote, "It's a penalty here and on the moon." And that's the moderate take. The more extreme ones are saying this was deliberate, systematic, part of a corrupted refereeing structure designed to benefit Barcelona. We've heard versions of this before, but after last night, it's gone to a whole new level.
And you know what, Maria? Even the fans who aren't conspiracy-minded are furious about this one. Someone in the comments said, and I'm translating directly, "What on earth has to happen for the team to walk off the pitch?" That's not a conspiracy theorist. That's someone who just feels completely powerless.
The Mbappé angle on this is interesting though, because he's been the lightning rod all season, and now suddenly the fans are rallying around him as the victim. Someone actually wrote that the pundits on commentary were saying, if it's a penalty, it's right, without even having seen the image of his injury. There's a sense that Mbappé can't win. Even when something happens to him, it gets minimized.
And then there's the brutal stat that one fan dropped: 3 matches with Mbappé back and 0 wins. They said, draw your own conclusions. Now look, I'm not ready to go full Mbappé out on this, because the penalty incident wasn't his fault, but that statistic is sitting in the comments section like a grenade.
It's a correlation, not a causation argument, and frankly, the squad has been rotating so heavily that blaming any single player for 3 results feels intellectually lazy. But the sentiment is real. People feel like things go wrong when he plays, and perception in football is its own kind of truth.
Vamos, let's talk about the La Liga situation, because the fans are done, completely done. One comment that got a lot of traction said, translating it, "We're in the Negrera League, you can't ask for more." That's a reference to the Barcelona refereeing scandal, and the implication is that the whole system is corrupted beyond repair.
The La Liga title conversation among fans has essentially collapsed into 2 camps. The conspiracy camp, who say Madrid are being actively sabotaged by officials, and the defeatist camp, who just shrug and say, goodbye to the league and goodbye to the Champions League on Wednesday. Those 2 groups are almost talking past each other at this point.
That goodbye to both comment is the one that's sticking with me the most this morning, because it captures something real. There's a segment of the fan base that has genuinely disconnected from hope. Not angry, not conspiratorial, just done. And that, honestly, is harder to hear than the fury.
What's also interesting is that even Girona's coach Michel, who obviously has no reason to be generous to Madrid, said after the match that he'd spoken to some Madrid players and believes they can turn it around against Bayern. That little detail is floating around and some fans are clinging to it like a life raft.
Que barbaridad. Now let's get to Arbeloa, because the fans are sharpening their knives. One comment that absolutely floored me: he doesn't even transmit the flu on the touchline. I mean, brutal, poetic, but brutal.
The Arbeloa discourse has shifted noticeably after this draw. A few weeks ago, fans were giving him grudging credit for his press conference tactics and his composure. Now the consensus is hardening. One fan said plainly, the squad requires a top-level manager, and that could be Klopp. The name Klopp is appearing more and more in the comments.
And then there's the apocalyptic take. Arbeloa's contract ends in June. The ship is sinking. That's not a minority view anymore. After the Bayern loss, the Mallorca loss, and now this draw against Girona, where we had 10 corners to their 1 and still couldn't win, people are questioning everything about the coaching setup.
The stats from last night actually back up the frustration. 600 passes to Girona's 390, 10 corners to their 1, and Madrid only managed a draw. One fan summed it up as a dull, insipid Madrid. And when your own supporters are using words like insipid, that's a coaching indictment as much as a player one.
There was also a moment in the crowd last night that one fan flagged sections of the Bernabeu, apparently singing at Vinicius to move, to get involved. And this fan was devastated by it, saying the players are lethargic and the fans aren't helping. It was this rare moment of self-criticism from the stands that doesn't happen often.
That Vinicius detail is significant because we've spent days on this show tracking the fan base's evolving relationship with him, from scapegoat to defended figure and back again. Now, there are fans calling him Beach Ball Vinny, alongside Mbappé critiques in the same breath, which tells you the patience has worn thin across the board.
One comment had an interesting framing, though. Someone said Madrid are wasting the pace of their two best players, Mbappé and Vinicius, and that the system isn't built to unleash them. That's a tactical critique rather than a player critique, and it's a more generous read, but it still lands on Arbeloa's doorstep.
Now, before everyone completely spirals, let me just plant a flag here. The Champions League second leg is in 4 days. Bayern Munich away, 1 goal down. Madrid have done this before. The fans who are writing off both competitions might be right, or they might be eating their words by Thursday morning.
And here's the thing. The UCL sentiment in the comments is actually more nuanced than the La Liga one. Even the most despairing fans seem to have a tiny ember of remontada energy left. One fan is already furious that UEFA allows Barcelona to play in the Champions League at all, which is its own rabbit hole. But underneath that, there's an implied belief that Madrid belong there and can compete.
Madrid are going to Munich carrying a full bag of problems. The draw last night, the refereeing bitterness, the Mbappé form questions, the Arbeloa pressure. But they've carried heavy bags to the Allianz before. The question is whether this squad, this season, with this coach, has the mentality to empty that bag and play free.
And that's exactly what we'll be processing tomorrow morning, because obviously we'll have our full pre-Munich breakdown before Tuesday's episode, and we'll be tracking everything the fans are saying as that match gets closer. Hala Madrid, Tio, however painful last night was, the story isn't over yet.
Tomorrow's episode, we dig into the Bayern build-up properly. Fan expectations, who might start, what a remontada actually requires tactically. Until then, keep the noise going in the comments. We read everything. See you at 7.
Okay, the fans are calling it insipid. They're blaming Arbeloa. They're pointing at Gazzaniga's heroics in goal. But Maria, you've been sitting there with the actual numbers from last night, and I have a feeling the data is going to make all of this hurt even more. What does the evidence actually say?
Here's what the cameras didn't capture. Real Madrid generated 2.31 expected goals tonight against Girona's 0.66. That means Madrid's expected goals were 3.5 times greater than Girona's. The score said 1-1. The data says it was never even close to that.
3.5 times. Tio, we dominated every single minute and came away with 1 point. That scoreline is a crime against mathematics.
And when you add expected points to that picture, it gets even more damning. By expected points, Real Madrid should have walked away with 2.4 points, essentially a guaranteed win. Girona's expected points return was 0.43. They had less than a half chance of even drawing this game by the numbers.
So statistically, Girona shouldn't have got anything from this match. Nothing. And yet, here we are, sitting on a draw. Madre mia.
Here's where the story gets personal, and it has a name. Paulo Gazzaniga posted an expected goals prevented figure of 0.83 tonight. That means he saved 0.83 goals above what any average goalkeeper would have been expected to save from the same shots. He is, statistically, the single biggest reason this ended 1-1.
So you're telling me one goalkeeper on his own personally stole a win from Real Madrid? That one man's performance accounts for the difference between a comfortable 3 points and a point dropped?
Not just any saves. Every single one of Gazzaniga's 7 saves came from inside the box. 7 from 7. He was facing close-range, high-quality attempts all night, including 3 shots on target from Vinicius Jr. alone, and he stopped all of them. He was rated 7.98 on the night, higher than any Real Madrid outfield player.
The best player on the pitch was the goalkeeper for the team that barely attacked. That is genuinely one of the most infuriating statistics I have ever heard. Venga, what about Girona's side of this? Because they did almost nothing, right?
Almost nothing is exactly right. The numbers tell a completely different story than the scoreline suggests. Girona had 10 shots total, but 6 of those came from outside the box. Low probability attempts that inflated their shot count without creating real danger. They managed just 4 shots from inside the box all match. Madrid had 18 shots from inside the box. And Girona's dangerous attacks, 23. Madrid's, 101.
1-1 dangerous attacks to 23. So Girona just sat back, absorbed everything, and waited for one moment. And Thomas Lemar, who hadn't scored in La Liga all season, was that moment.
Lemar's equalizer at 62 minutes was Girona's only shot on target from inside the box all match. 1 shot on target from inside the box all game. It went in. Their shooting performance figure was plus 0.19. They outperformed their expected goals, but the entire mechanism was one moment of individual quality from a player who had absolutely no business being the decisive figure in this game.
So, their entire attacking plan was basically survive, let Madrid exhaust themselves, and hope someone scores a goal they had no right to score. And it worked perfectly. I need a minute.
Now here's the part that is going to make Arbeloa's tactical decisions tonight very difficult to defend. Before the 64th minute, Bellingham had completed 5 successful dribbles from 6 attempts, an 83% success rate, and made 6 ball recoveries in under 65 minutes. He was Madrid's most dynamic ball carrier and their most active defensive contributor in midfield. Arbeloa took him off at 64 minutes, simultaneously withdrawing Milito, in what the data reads as a clear signal to protect the lead.
Wait, Lemar scored at 62 minutes. The substitutions came at 64. So Arbeloa's response to conceding the equalizer was to make defensive changes. He took off his best ball progressor to protect a lead that no longer existed.
That is exactly what the timeline shows. And the structural damage didn't stop there. By the end of the match, Madrid's ball-safe figure was just 60 compared to Girona's 79, and Girona won 22 tackles to Madrid's 13. 5 substitutions in 20 minutes didn't stabilize Madrid's structure. The data says it destroyed it.
So the final picture is this. Madrid dominated every single metric. A goalkeeper had the performance of his life, and then the tactical response to conceding made everything worse. 2.31 expected goals, 101 dangerous attacks, and we walk away with 1 point. The numbers don't lie, Tio. They just hurt more than the final whistle did.
And that's the full picture of last night. The fans felt it in their bones, and the data confirms every single instinct they had. The fury in the comments about Arbeloa, about the system not working, about Madrid dominating and getting nothing, completely justified. 2.31 expected goals, 1 point on the board. Gazzaniga had the night of his life, Lemar scored a goal he had no right to score, and the substitutions that followed made a bad situation structurally worse. The fans called it insipid. The numbers call it a heist.
But here's where we leave you. Because the story doesn't end in the Bernabeu car park. It continues in Munich. The fans still have that ember of remontada energy, and the data tells us this squad is genuinely capable of creating chances at an elite level. They just need a goalkeeper on the other side who is human. Tomorrow we bring you the full Bayern build-up, the tactical picture, the fan expectations, what a comeback actually requires. All of that right here tomorrow morning. Hala Madrid, and we'll see you then.